The blood moon hung over the crimson palace, like an omen. The night Minji pressed trembling fingers to her stomach and felt the flutter beneath her ribs. She had been barren her entire life. The physicians had confirmed it, the shamans had mourned it, and the Vampire King Junho had accepted it when he'd taken her as a maid 3 years ago. Yet here she stood in the moon pavilion, staring at her reflection in the ornamental pool, watching her hand rest over a belly that held life. Impossible, forbidden life. The kind of life that could start wars and end dynasties. Her breath crystallized in the autumn air as footsteps approached, measured, deliberate, belonging to someone who owned the very ground beneath her feet. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The electric charge that preceded him, the way the night itself seemed to bow, told her everything. "You're up past curfew, little maid," came the voice of Vampire King Junho, smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "Before we unravel the mystery of the barren maid who got pregnant by a vampire royal, but can't remember which brother is the father, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel brings you stories of betrayal and forbidden magic, where medical impossibilities become reality, where paternity disputes can topple kingdoms, and sometimes the biggest mystery isn't who the father is, but why you can't remember the night that changed everything. Now, let's discover whose baby the barren maid is really carrying." Chapter 1: The Impossible Truth. Minji turned slowly, forcing her trembling hands to her sides as Junho materialized from the shadows like smoke given form. The Vampire King of the Eastern Bloodlands wore traditional black robes embroidered with silver dragons, his long dark hair pulled back to reveal features that could have been carved from marble, beautiful, cold, eternal. His crimson eyes, the mark of pure-blooded vampire royalty, swept over her with the casual interest of a man assessing property. "Your Majesty," she whispered, dropping into a deep bow. "Forgive me. I couldn't sleep. Troubled dreams." He moved closer, each step deliberate. The scent of night-blooming jasmine and something darker, blood, perhaps, or ancient magic, wafted from him. Or a troubled conscience? Her heart hammered. Could he know? Could he sense it? Vampires had heightened senses, could hear a heartbeat from across a palace, could smell fear and lies and... "There are 2 heartbeats." The words fell between them like a blade. Minji's knees buckled. She would have collapsed if Junho hadn't caught her arm with supernatural speed, steadying her with a grip that was firm but not cruel. His eyes had widened fractionally, the most emotion she'd ever seen from the perpetually composed king. "That's impossible," he said, but his voice had lost its edge of bored authority. Now it carries something else. Confusion. Perhaps even wonder. "You were examined. The royal physicians declared you barren. It's in your records." "It's why. Why did you allow me to serve in the inner palace?" Minji finished, her voice barely audible. "Because a barren woman poses no threat. Can't be used for political marriages or produce heirs that might complicate succession." "Exactly." Junho released her arm but didn't step back. Instead, he tilted his head, studying her with renewed intensity. "So explain to me, Minji of the river village, how you are now carrying a child." She couldn't. She had no explanation that made sense. 3 months ago, she'd been summoned to the king's private chambers, not for his bed, never for that, but to organize ancient texts he'd been studying. She'd worked late into the night, and when exhaustion had finally claimed her, she'd fallen asleep at his desk. She'd woken the next morning in her own quarters with no memory of how she'd gotten there and a strange warmth in her chest, as if she'd swallowed sunlight. "I don't know," she admitted. "I swear on my ancestors, Your Majesty, I don't know how this happened." Junho's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might call the guards, have her dragged to the dungeons for witchcraft or deception. Instead, he did something that shocked her more than anything else that night. He placed his palm against her stomach. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. His eyes drifted closed, and Minji felt a pulse of energy, his power, reading what lay beneath her skin. When his eyes opened again, they held something she'd never seen in them before. Fear. "This child," he began, then stopped. Started again. "This child carries a vampire essence. Royal vampire essence." That's impossible, Minji breathed. I never. I know. His hand remained on her stomach, and beneath it, she felt the flutter again. The life that shouldn't exist. But the blood doesn't lie. This child is connected to the royal line. Before either could speak another word, a new voice cut through the night like a knife through silk. How touching. The mighty Vampire King, moved by a maid's condition. They sprang apart. Standing at the entrance to the Moon Pavilion was Junho's younger brother, Prince Minjun. Where Junho was all sharp edges and controlled power, Minjun radiated barely contained chaos. His crimson eyes gleamed with something dangerous as they fixed on Minji's stomach. Brother, Junho said, his voice returning to its usual cold authority. This doesn't concern you, doesn't it? Minjun stepped into the pavilion, his smile sharp enough to cut. A barren maid, mysteriously pregnant with a royal child? In a palace where you and I are the only pure-blooded royals. He laughed, the sound devoid of humor. I'd say this concerns me very much. Minji's blood turned to ice as Minjun's gaze locked onto hers. Especially, he continued, moving closer, since the child is mine. The world tilted. Junho's power flared, the temperature dropping so rapidly that frost spread across the pavilion floor. What did you say? You heard me, brother. Minjun's smile widened. 3 months ago, when you were away negotiating the border treaties, I took comfort in our dear Minji's company. Quite memorably, in fact. You're lying. But even as Junho said it, doubt flickered across his features. He had been away. For 2 weeks, managing disputes with the Western Bloodlands. Am I? Minjun pulled something from his robes, a silk ribbon, pale blue, the exact shade of the one Minji had lost months ago. She left this in my chambers. Among other things. Minji's mind reeled. She'd never been in Minjun's chambers. She'd barely spoken to the prince beyond formal greetings. But the ribbon, how did he have her ribbon? This is a lie, she gasped. Your Majesty, I swear I've never. The child carries royal blood, Minjun interrupted smoothly. The timing aligns. The evidence speaks for itself. He turned to Junho with mock concern. Unless you're suggesting you broke your centuries-old vow of celibacy? That you, who swore never to produce an heir after Lady Seoyun's death, suddenly decided to be a lowly maid. The name, Lady Seoyun, fell like a stone into dark water. Junho's face became a mask of ice. Everyone in the palace knew that name. The king's fated mate, dead 50 years, the loss that had turned him from a passionate prince into a cold, untouchable monarch. Get out, Junho said quietly. But the quiet was worse than shouting. It was quiet before the execution. Gladly. Minjun bowed with exaggerated courtesy. But brother? That child is mine. And I intend to claim both mother and baby, as is my right. His eyes found Minji's again. I'll send for you tomorrow, sweet Minji. We have much to discuss about our future together. He vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only the echo of his laughter and the jasmine-scented smoke that marked his passage. Minji stood frozen, her world collapsing. When she finally found the courage to look at Junho, his expression was unreadable. Did you? He asked simply. No. The word tore from her throat. Never. I swear on everything holy and unholy, I never touched him. I don't know how. But you can't remember that night, Junho interrupted. The night you fell asleep in my study. You can't remember how you got back to your quarters. She couldn't. And that gap in her memory now felt like a chasm ready to swallow her whole. I need to think, Junho said finally. He stepped back, putting distance between them. Return to your quarters. Speak to no one about this. And Minji. His crimson eyes bored into hers. If you're lying to me, if you conspired with my brother for some plot I don't yet understand, there will be nowhere in this world or the next where you can hide from my wrath. I'm not lying, she whispered. Then pray the truth surfaces soon. Because in 3 days, the Grand Council convenes. If Minjun presents his claim before them. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. If the prince claimed her and the child before the council, by vampire law, Junho would have no grounds to refuse. A royal could claim any commoner. And once claimed, they became property. Minji fled back to her quarters, her hand pressed protectively over the impossible life growing inside her. Behind her, she didn't see Junho return to the Moon Pavilion, didn't see him retrieve something from the ornamental pool where she'd been standing. A small crystal vial, still warm, containing 3 drops of blood that glowed with an inner light. Blood that belonged to neither him nor his brother, but to someone or something far more ancient. Chapter 2: Secrets in the Archives. Minji didn't sleep. How could she, when her world had shattered into pieces she couldn't reassemble? She lay in her small quarters, a modest room in the servants' wing with a sleeping mat, a wooden chest, and a single window that overlooked the palace gardens, and tried to make sense of the impossible. The child was real. She felt it now, a constant presence, a warmth that pulsed in rhythm with her own heartbeat. But how? And if she truly hadn't been with Minjun, then who? Her thoughts drifted back to that night 3 months ago. She'd been organizing Junho's collection of ancient texts, records dating back to the founding of the Vampire Kingdoms. One scroll in particular had caught her attention, something about bloodline magic and the Vessels of Dawn. She'd been reading it when exhaustion claimed her. And then, nothing. A blank space where memory should be. When dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that would send the vampires retreating to their darkened chambers, Minji made a decision. If no one would tell her the truth, she would find it herself. The royal archives were forbidden to servants, but Minji had spent 3 years learning the palace's secrets, which guards could be bribed with sweet rice cakes, which corridors were monitored, which hours the archivists took their blood meals. She waited until mid-morning, when the palace lay in its daytime stillness, and slipped through the servants' passages toward the eastern wing. The archives occupied an entire floor of the oldest part of the palace, a labyrinth of shelves holding centuries of vampire history. Minji moved quickly through the shadows, her heart hammering as she navigated toward the section she remembered, texts on bloodline magic and ancient rituals. Looking for something specific? She spun, nearly dropping the lamp she carried. From between 2 towering shelves emerged a figure she hadn't expected, Lady Hygiene, the king's chief advisor and one of the oldest vampires in the court. Her silver hair was pulled back severely, and her crimson eyes held an intelligence that missed nothing. "My lady," Minji stammered, dropping into a bow. "I was just looking for answers about your condition?" Hygiene moved closer, her silk robes whispering against the stone floor. "Yes, I know about the child. The king consulted me this morning." Minji's throat went dry. "Are you here to arrest me?" "Arrest you?" "No." Hygiene's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "I'm here to help you. Because, dear girl, you've stumbled into something far more dangerous than a simple palace scandal." She gestured for Minji to follow, leading her deeper into the archives, past rows of scrolls and bound volumes, until they reached a section sealed behind iron gates. Hygiene produced a key, ancient, ornate, and unlocked the barrier. "What you're about to learn," the advisor said, "must never leave this room. Do you understand?" Minji nodded, following her into a chamber lined with texts so old they seemed to pulse with their own energy. Hygiene retrieved a scroll bound in red silk and unfurled it on a reading table. 300 years ago, she began, there was a prophecy. It spoke of a child born of impossible circumstances, a child who would carry both vampire and human essence in perfect balance. This child would have the power to either unite or destroy all the bloodline kingdoms. Minji stared at the ancient text, at the symbols she couldn't fully read but somehow felt in her bones. The prophecy called this child the Dawnbringer, Hygiene continued. Born of a vessel, a human woman with a dormant bloodline, one who could channel ancient magic without being consumed by it. These women appear once every several generations. They're always believed to be barren because their wombs are waiting for the right catalyst. "What kind of catalyst?" Minji whispered. "Royal vampire blood. But not through conventional means." Hygiene's expression grew grave. "There's a ritual, long forbidden, called the Blood Covenant. It requires the vampire to sacrifice a piece of their own life essence, their very soul, to create life in a vessel. The vampire gives everything, risks everything, for the chance to create a child who could change the world. The warmth in Minji's chest suddenly made sense. That night, when she'd fallen asleep in Junho's study, when she'd woken with sunlight in her veins. The king, she breathed. He performed the ritual. Perhaps. Hygiene's tone was careful. Or perhaps someone wants you to believe he did. You see, the ritual leaves a mark, a binding between the vampire and the vessel. If Junho truly performed the blood covenant, you would feel his presence always, like a second heartbeat in your chest. Do you? Minji searched within herself. She felt the child, felt the warmth and the life, but no. No second presence. No connection to Junho beyond the natural awareness any servant had of their king. I don't, she admitted. Then we have a problem. Hygiene rolled up the scroll carefully. Because someone performed this ritual on you. And if it wasn't the king, then who? Minjun claims the child, but he's always been too selfish for such a sacrifice. The blood covenant requires giving up part of one's immortality. Minjun would never. A sound echoed through the archives, footsteps, approaching fast. Hygiene moved with supernatural speed, secreting the scroll away and guiding Minji toward a hidden exit. Go. Return to your quarters. Tell no one we spoke. And Minji? Trust no one. Not the king, not the prince, not even me. Someone is playing a very dangerous game, and you're the prize. Minji fled through the hidden passages, her mind racing faster than her feet. By the time she reached her quarters, the sun had begun its descent, and the palace was stirring back to life. She had barely closed her door when a knock sounded, sharp, imperious. Open, came Minjun's voice. Now. Her blood froze. She had no choice. Refusing a royal summons meant death. She opened the door to find the prince standing there with 2 guards, his smile as cold as winter frost. Did you think I'd wait until tomorrow? He asked pleasantly. No, sweet Minji. We're going to have our conversation now. About you, about our child, and about your future as my concubine. The word hit her like a physical blow. Concubine. Not even a wife. Just property. I told you, she said, forcing steel into her voice. The child isn't. Isn't mine? Please. Minjun stepped into her room uninvited, his guards blocking the exit. We both know the truth. That night 3 months ago, when my dear brother was away, you came to me. Begged me, actually. Said you were tired of being overlooked, of being nothing. Said you wanted power, wanted protection. And I, the generous soul that I am, gave you both. That's a lie. The words exploded from her. I never. Can you prove it? Minjun leaned closer, his breath cold against her cheek. Can you prove you didn't come to me? Can you remember that entire night? She couldn't. That damned gap in her memory, that blank space, it was a weapon being used against her. Here's what's going to happen, Minjun said softly. Tomorrow, you'll appear before the Grand Council. You'll confirm that we were together, that the child is mine, and that you accept my claim. In return, I'll give you a comfortable life. Your family in River Village will receive gold, land, protection. Refuse and... He shrugged elegantly. Well, a servant who falsely accuses a prince of fathering a bastard? That's a crime punishable by death. Along with her entire family. The threat was clear. Agree to the lie, or everyone she loved would die. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this? Something flickered in Minjun's eyes, something desperate, almost afraid. Because I need this child. Because without it, I'm nothing. Just the spare prince, forever in my brother's shadow. He straightened, his mask sliding back into place. You have until tomorrow noon to decide. Choose wisely, little maid. Your life, and many others, depend on it. He left, taking his guards with him. Minji collapsed against the wall, her hand pressed protectively over her stomach. The child fluttered beneath her palm, as if responding to her fear. What do I do? She thought desperately. How do I fight a prince? The answer came as the last rays of sunlight faded and true night descended. She couldn't fight him alone. She needed help. She needed the king. But could she trust him? Hygiene had warned her to trust no one. Yet Junho had seemed genuinely shocked by her pregnancy, genuinely confused. If he'd performed the blood covenant, wouldn't he have known immediately? Wouldn't he have claimed her? Unless he had his own reasons for hiding the truth. Minji made her decision. She would go to the king, tell him everything about the archives, about Minjun's threats, about the prophecy. And if he was the one who'd performed the ritual, if he was the child's true father, then perhaps he'd help her. Perhaps he'd protect her from his brother's schemes. And if he wasn't, if someone else had woven this web of lies and magic around her, then she was already dead. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. If you were Minji, would you trust the Vampire King who might have performed a forbidden ritual on you, or would you run? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Now, let's see what choice Minji makes. The king's private chambers were in the highest tower of the Crimson Palace, accessible only by a winding staircase that seemed designed to discourage visitors. Minji climbed through the darkness, her legs burning, her heart hammering against her ribs. The guards at the base had let her pass with suspicious looks. A maid summoning herself to the king's rooms was unusual, but not forbidden. Not yet, anyway. She reached the carved doors at the top and raised her hand to knock. Before her knuckles could touch wood, the doors swung open on silent hinges. "Come in, Minji." Junho's voice drifted from within. "I've been expecting you." She entered a room that stole her breath. Unlike the cold, austere halls of the palace, the king's private chambers were filled with life, shelves overflowing with books, scrolls scattered across tables, paintings of landscapes she'd never seen covering the walls. And in the center of it all, standing by a window that overlooked the blood moon, was Junho himself. He'd removed his formal robes and wore simple black, his long hair loose around his shoulders. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked almost human. "You spoke with hygiene," he said without turning around. "You went to the archives. How did you?" "I know everything that happens in my palace." Now he did turn, his crimson eyes finding hers. "The question is, what did you learn?" Minji decided on honesty. She had nothing left to lose. The blood covenant. The vessel of dawn. The prophecy about a child who could unite or destroy the kingdoms. She stepped closer, fear giving way to desperate courage. "Did you do it? Did you perform the ritual on me?" Silence stretched between them, heavy as iron. "No," Junho said finally. "But I know who did." The admission shocked her. "Who?" "Sit." He gestured to a cushioned chair near the fireplace. "This story is long, and you deserve to hear all of it." Minji sat, her legs grateful for the rest. Junho remained standing, staring into the flames as he spoke. 50 years ago, I had a maid. Lady Seoyun, daughter of the Northern Blood Lord. She was everything. Light in darkness, laughter in silence. She was also a vessel of dawn, though neither of us knew it then. His voice grew distant, lost in memory. When she became pregnant, we thought it was a miracle. But the pregnancy was killing her. The child, my child, was too powerful, draining her life force faster than even vampire healing could restore. Minji's hand instinctively moved to her own stomach. "The elder vampires told me about the blood covenant then," Junho continued. "They said if I'd performed it from the beginning, if I'd sacrificed part of my immortality to create the child properly, Seoyun might have survived. But it was too late. The child was already formed, the damage already done. She died giving birth to a son who lived only 3 days before following her into death." "I'm sorry," Minji whispered. "I swore I'd never create another child. Never risk another life. Never perform the blood covenant, no matter the temptation." He finally looked at her. "So no, Minji. I didn't perform the ritual on you. But my brother did." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "That's impossible," Minji protested. "He claims the child, yes, but he said we were together, that it was natural." "He's lying. And I can prove it." Junho moved his desk and retrieved the crystal vial she'd seen him collect at the Moon Pavilion. "This is your blood, taken from where you stood last night. Watch." He tilted the vial. The 3 drops of blood glowed brighter, and within that glow, images began to form, memories, captured in blood magic. Minji watched, horror mounting, as she saw herself 3 months ago. saw herself working late in Junho's study, falling asleep at the desk. Then saw Minjun entering, moving with predatory grace toward her unconscious form. Watched as he pulled out ritual implements, a silver knife, ancient scrolls, vials of his own blood. No, she breathed. But the memory continued. Minjun performed the blood covenant on her sleeping body, cutting his palm and letting his blood mix with hers, speaking incantations in a language older than the kingdoms themselves. The magic had been raw, desperate, poorly executed. When it finished, Minjun had stood there, breathing hard, looking at her unconscious form with a mixture of triumph and fear. Then he'd done something else. He'd pulled out another vial, this one containing memory dust, a forbidden substance that could erase hours from someone's mind. He'd blown it across her face, erasing any chance she'd remember his violation. Finally, he'd carried her back to her quarters, stolen her ribbon as false evidence, and disappeared into the night. The vision faded. Minji sat frozen, her mind struggling to process what she'd witnessed. "He violated you," Junho said quietly. "Not physically, but magically. He performed the blood covenant without your consent, created life inside you without permission, and then tried to frame it as seduction. Also, he could claim the Dawnbringer as his own." But why? Tears streamed down Minji's face. Why would he do this? Because Minjun is desperate. Junho's expression hardened. For centuries, he's been the spare, never quite good enough, never quite strong enough. When he learned about the prophecy, about the power the Dawnbringer would possess, he saw his chance. A child that powerful, raised under his control, could make him the most influential vampire in all the kingdoms. He could overthrow me, take the throne, rule absolutely. And he needed a vessel, Minji whispered, the pieces falling into place. But vessels are rare. How did he know I was one? He didn't. He tested every woman in the palace. You were the only one the ritual worked on. Junho's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Do you understand what this means? He's willing to risk ancient prophecy, willing to play with forces he doesn't understand, all for power. And tomorrow, he'll stand before the Grand Council and claim you and the child as his property. Then we expose him. Minji surged to her feet. We show the council this memory, prove he performed the ritual without consent. Blood magic memories are inadmissible as evidence. They can be falsified too easily. The council won't accept it. Junho moved closer to her. But there is another way. What way? I claim you first. The words stopped her heart. If I declare before the council that you're under my protection, that I suspect my brother of foul play, I can buy us time. Weeks, maybe months, for us to gather real evidence. But Minji, his crimson eyes bore into hers. It would mean becoming my ward. Living in the royal wing under constant guard, unable to leave the palace. Your freedom would be gone. And if we failed to prove Minjun's crime, you'd be bound to me forever with no escape. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow Minjun claims you. You become his concubine, the child becomes his tool, and both of you will be trapped in his web until the day the Dawnbringer's power manifests. And when that happens, Junho's expression grew grim. He'll kill you. A vessel of dawn is only needed until the child is born. After that, you're a liability. Minji's hand pressed against her stomach, feeling the flutter of the impossible life within. Her child. Not Minjun's, not really anyone's, but hers. A baby who deserved a chance to live free, to be more than a weapon in some prince's quest for power. If I accept your protection, she said slowly, what happens to my family? Minjun threatened them. Said he'd kill them if I refused him. I'll send guards tonight. Your family will be brought to the palace, given rooms in the protected wing, and placed under royal protection. Minjun won't be able to touch them without declaring war on me directly. It was the best offer she'd get. Perhaps the only offer that didn't end in death. I accept, Minji said. I place myself and my child under your protection, your majesty. Something flickered in Junho's eyes, relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. Then we have much to prepare. The council convenes at noon. We have until then to build our case. He moved to his desk and began writing orders with swift, decisive strokes. Minji watched him, this cold king who'd lost everything 50 years ago, who'd sworn never to risk another life, now risking his throne and perhaps his very existence to protect a servant and an unborn child. "Why are you helping me?" she asked softly. "Really?" Junho paused in his writing. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, without looking at her, he said, "Because 50 years ago, I failed to save Xiaoyun and my son. I won't fail again. And because..." He did look up then, his crimson eyes holding something she'd never seen before, raw, painful honesty. "Because that child deserves a chance. Whatever it becomes, whatever destiny awaits it, it deserves to be born free. Not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a person with choices." "Thank you," Minji whispered. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow's battle is only the beginning." He returned to his writing. "Now go. Rest while you can. And Minji? Stay away from windows and shadows. Minjun knows you're here. And desperate men do desperate things." She left the king's chambers with her mind spinning, her heart torn between hope and terror. Tomorrow, everything will change. Tomorrow, she'd stand before the Grand Council and let the Vampire King claim her as his ward, his responsibility, his problem. Tomorrow, the war for her child's future would truly begin. What she didn't know, what neither she nor Junho could have known, was that someone else had been listening to their entire conversation. Someone who'd been watching from the shadows, who'd heard every word, every plan, every secret. And in the darkness of the servants' corridors, this listener smiled. The game was far more complicated than either the king or his brother realized. And the true player had yet to reveal themselves. Chapter 4. The Grand Council. The Grand Council chamber was a testament to vampire power and history. Circular in design, with a domed ceiling painted with murals of the ancient wars, the room could hold 200 vampires comfortably. Today, it was packed with nobility from all corners of the Eastern Bloodlands, all summoned by urgent decree to witness what promised to be a spectacle. A scandal involving the royal family was rare. A scandal involving an impossible pregnancy and competing claims? That was once-in-a-generation entertainment. Minji stood in the center of the chamber, flanked by 2 royal guards, feeling the weight of hundreds of crimson eyes upon her. She wore fresh robes, deep blue, the color of royal wards, that Junho had sent to her chambers at dawn along with her family. Her mother and younger sister had clung to her, crying with relief and confusion, before being escorted to safety in the protected wing. Now, standing alone before the council, Minji felt smaller than she ever had in her life. At the head of the chamber sat the Council of Elders, 7 ancient vampires who served as advisors and judges for matters too complex for even the king to decide alone. Lady Hygiene was among them, her expression carefully neutral. To the left of the chamber sat Junho on his throne, resplendent in formal crimson robes embroidered with gold, his crown of black iron resting on his brow. His face showed nothing, no emotion, no hint of the alliance they'd forged the night before. To the right sat Minjun, looking equally regal in silver and black, his smile sharp as broken glass. "This council is called to order," announced Elder Sang-hoon, the eldest of the 7. His voice cracked with age, but carried absolute authority. "We are gathered to address a matter of succession, bloodline, and royal claim. Prince Minjun, you have petitioned the council. State your case." Minjun rose with practiced grace. "Honored elders, I come before you today to acknowledge my child, a child carried by the human woman Minji, former maid of the palace. 3 months ago, she and I entered into intimate relations. The child she carries is mine by blood and right. I hereby claim both mother and baby as mine by vampire law." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Minjun continued, producing the blue ribbon like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "This belongs to Minji. She left it in my chambers the night we were together. I kept it as a token of our encounter." His smile was all predatory confidence. "The child carries royal vampire essence, as examination will prove. The timing aligns perfectly. And Minji herself cannot deny these facts. All eyes turned to her. Minji felt her throat close, her carefully rehearsed words dying on her tongue. This was it, the moment where she either spoke the truth and risked everything, or stayed silent and let the lie consume her. "The woman does not deny your claim?" Elder Sanghoon asked, his ancient eyes narrowing. Minji began. "She cannot," Junho's voice cut through the chamber like a blade, "because I claim her first." The room exploded into chaos. Junho rose from his throne, his presence commanding immediate silence. By ancient law, a vampire of higher rank may supersede a claim of lower rank. As Vampire King, I exercise that right. I declare Minji of River Village to be under my direct protection. Any claim upon her or her child must first pass through me. Minjun's mask of confidence cracked. "Brother, you have no grounds." "I have every ground," Junho interrupted coldly. "The woman came to me last night reporting coercion and threats against her family. She claims your story is fabricated, that she never consented to any intimate contact with you. In matters of consent, vampire law is clear. The burden of proof falls upon the claimant, not the accused." "I have proof." Minjun held up the ribbon. "I have evidence of our time together." "You have a ribbon." Junho's tone was dismissive. "A ribbon that could have been obtained any number of ways. Do you have witnesses to this alleged encounter? Do you have written consent, as is required for any intimate relations between a royal and a commoner?" Minjun's silence was enough. Written consent. It was an old law, rarely enforced, but technically still valid. Without it, he had no legal ground to stand on. Furthermore, Junho continued, his voice growing harder, "I have reason to suspect magical coercion." The woman was believed to be barren, medically confirmed as such. Yet, suddenly she's pregnant with a vampire child? That suggests external magical interference, possibly the blood covenant ritual performed without consent, which is a crime punishable by death. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The blood covenant was sacred, forbidden to be used without explicit permission from all parties involved. "You dare accuse me," Minjun started. "I accuse you of nothing yet," Junho said. "I merely note suspicions that warrant investigation, as is my right and duty as king." He turned to the Council of Elders. "I petition this council to place Minji of River Village under royal wardship while we investigate the circumstances of her pregnancy. If my brother's claim is found to be legitimate and consensual, I will honor it. But until such proof is provided, she and her child remain under my protection." Elder Sanghoon conferred with the other elders in whispers too low for even vampire ears beyond their circle to hear. Finally, he raised his hand in silence. "The council has deliberated. Given the unusual circumstances, the woman's documented barrenness, the lack of written consent, and the suspicious timing, we find grounds for investigation. Minji of River Village is hereby placed under royal wardship for a period of 3 months, during which time Prince Minjun may provide evidence of his claim. If no satisfactory proof is provided by the end of this period, his claim will be dissolved." "This is outrageous." Minjun's composure finally shattered. "She's carrying my child. The blood will prove." "The blood proves royal vampire essence," Junho interrupted. "It doesn't prove which royal vampire. For all we know, it could be mine." The chamber went deathly silent. "Are you confessing to breaking your vow?" Minjun asked, his voice dangerous. "Your vow never to create another child after Lady Seoyeon?" Junho met his brother's glare without flinching. "I'm stating facts. Royal vampire essence could come from you, from me, or from any other royal who had access to the ritual materials and opportunity. Until we determine which, the woman remains under my protection. The council has spoken. Do you challenge their ruling?" Challenging a council ruling was tantamount to challenging the foundation of vampire society itself. Minjun knew it. Everyone knew it. "No," he said through gritted teeth. "I do not challenge the council." "But brother? When those 3 months are up, when I provide the proof you demand, you will regret this day. That child is mine. And I will have what is mine." He stormed from the chamber, his exit dramatic enough to set robes billowing and candles flickering in his wake. Elder Sanghoon's gavel came down 3 times. "This council is adjourned." Minji of River Village, you will report to the royal wing immediately. Your wardship begins now. The crowd began to disperse, vampires clustering in groups to gossip about what they'd witnessed. Minji stood frozen until Junho appeared at her side, his hand at her elbow guiding her toward a side exit. Come, he murmured. We have much to discuss. They walked in silence through the palace corridors, guards falling into step behind them. Only when they reached the royal wing, a section of the palace Minji had only ever cleaned, never inhabited, did Junho finally speak. You did well there. Your silence lets me control the narrative. I was terrified, Minji admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He led her to a suite of rooms far more luxurious than anything she'd ever seen. Silk curtains, carved furniture, a bed large enough for 3 people. These are your quarters now. You're not a prisoner, but you're not free to leave the palace. Guards will be stationed outside at all times, ostensibly for your protection, but also to monitor your movements. And my family? Safe in the western wing. You may visit them under escort. Junho moved to the window, staring out at the palace grounds. We bought Minji for 3 months, Minji. 3 months to prove Minjun performed the ritual without your consent. But blood magic evidence won't be enough. We need something concrete. A witness, a confession, documentation of his ritual materials. How do we get that? I don't know yet. For the first time since she'd known him, Junho sounded uncertain. Minjun is clever. He's had weeks to cover his tracks. Finding proof that will satisfy the council will be nearly impossible. Minji moved to stand beside him, her hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. The child fluttered, as if aware of the danger surrounding it. What happens if we fail? She asked quietly. Then in 3 months, Minjun claims you. And I. Junho's joy tightened. I will have failed again to protect someone under my care. The weight of his past hung between them, Lady Xiaoyan, his lost son, 50 years of guilt and isolation. Minji understood now why he'd agreed to help her. This wasn't just about her or her child. It was about redemption. We won't fail, she said with more confidence than she felt. We can't. Before Junho could respond, a knock sounded at the door. One of the guards entered, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, there's someone here demanding an audience. She claims to have information about Prince Minjun's activities 3 months ago. Hope flared in Minji's chest. A witness? Already? Who is she? Junho demanded. A former maid, sire. Recently dismissed from palace service. Her name is Yuna. Minji's blood went cold. She knew that name. Yuna had been one of the palace's senior maids, a woman who'd always seemed to know everyone's business, who'd had access to every wing, every secret passage. She'd been dismissed a month ago for theft, though she'd protested her innocence loudly before being escorted out. Bring her in, Junho ordered. The woman who entered was thin and nervous, her hands wringing together. But her eyes were sharp, calculating. She bowed before Junho but kept glancing at Minji. Your Majesty, thank you for seeing me. I have information about the night in question. 3 months ago, when Prince Minjun claimed he was with Minji. Yuna's voice trembled, but her words were clear. I saw what really happened. I saw him performing the blood covenant ritual on her while she was unconscious. Minji's heart soared. A witness. Someone who'd seen the truth. But Junho's expression remained guarded. Why didn't you come forward sooner? I was afraid, Your Majesty. The prince threatened me, said if I spoke of what I'd seen, he'd have me killed. But now I hear Minji's in danger and I can't stay silent. I can testify before the council, tell them exactly what I witnessed. It was too perfect. Too convenient. And from the look on Junho's face, he thought so too. What do you want in return for this testimony? He asked bluntly. Yuna hesitated. I was wrongfully dismissed. I want my position back. And, perhaps, compensation. For the trauma of witnessing such dark magic, for the risk I'm taking by coming forward. Of course you do. Junho's voice was cold. Tell me, Yuna, who sent you? Was it my brother, thinking to plant a false witness who I'll discredit, making me look paranoid? Or was it someone else, playing a different game entirely? No one sent me. I swear I'm telling the truth. Get out. Junho's power flared, the temperature in the room dropping so rapidly that frost spread across the windows. If you want to sell lies, find a different buyer. And tell whoever sent you that I'm not so easily manipulated. Yuno fled, her footsteps echoing down the corridor. When she was gone, Minji turned to Junho in confusion. She was lying? But she was offering to help us. She was offering exactly what we wanted to hear. Which makes her either a plant from Minjun to discredit us or... He paused, his expression thoughtful. Or a plant from whoever else is playing this game. What do you mean, whoever else? Junho moved to a cabinet and poured himself a glass of blood wine, the vampire equivalent of alcohol, mellowed with herbs and spices. I've been thinking about this all night. Minjun is ambitious, but not subtle. The way this entire situation has unfolded, the timing, the drama, the public spectacle, it feels orchestrated. As if someone wants us at each other's throats, wants the kingdom destabilized. But who would want that? I don't know. But I intend to find out. He drained his glass in one swallow. For now, rest. You're safe here. And Minji? Don't trust anyone. Not the servants, not the guards, not even me. Because someone in this palace wants that child, and they're willing to destroy us all to get it. Chapter 5: The Shadow Player. 3 weeks passed in uneasy tension. Minji settled into her new life as a royal ward, luxurious quarters, fine meals, but always the presence of guards, always the weight of watching eyes. She visited her family daily, finding comfort in her mother's gentle presence and her younger sister's excited chatter about the palace wonders. But at night, alone in her rooms, she felt the child growing stronger. The flutters had become kicks, the warmth had become a constant presence. And sometimes, in the moments between waking and sleep, she swore she could hear a voice, not words exactly, but feelings, emotions that weren't her own. The child was aware. Impossibly early, impossibly strong, the Dawnbringer was already conscious. Junho visited her chambers most evenings, ostensibly to check on her condition, but truly to discuss their lack of progress. Minjun had gone quiet, which worried them more than open hostility would have. The prince was planning something, but what? We're running out of time, Junho said one evening, pacing her sitting room like a caged predator. 2 more months, and if we have no proof, the council will grant Minjun's claim. I can delay, perhaps, but not indefinitely. Eventually, vampire law will work against us. Then we need to find proof, Minji said. She'd grown bolder in their conversations, no longer the timid maid, but someone fighting for her child's life. There must be something, ritual materials he purchased, someone who sold him the memory dust, records of his research into the prophecy. Minjun is too careful. He's covered every trail. Junho stopped his pacing, staring out the window at the blood moon rising over the palace. Unless what? Unless we make him confess. Not to us, but to someone he trusts. Someone who could record the conversation, provide evidence the council can't dismiss. Who would he trust enough to confess to? Junho's smile was bitter. His mother. Minji knew of the former queen, Junho, and Minjun's mother, who'd retired from court politics decades ago to live in seclusion in the northern mountains. Rumor said she still commanded enormous influence, that she could summon princes with a word. Would she help us? She would tell the truth. My mother valued honesty above all else. If she knew what Minjun had done, she'd force him to confess. Junho turned to face her. I'll send it to her. It will take time, the northern roads are treacherous this time of year, but if anyone can make my brother crack, it's her. Hope flickered in Minji's chest. Then we have a plan. We have half a plan. The other half. He hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. Minji, there's something I need to tell you. About the child. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. What about it? I've been researching the Blood Covenant, the vessel of dawn prophecy, everything I can find about the Dawnbringer. And I found something disturbing. Junho moved closer, his voice low and urgent. The child will be powerful, yes. But that power comes at a cost. When the Dawnbringer is born, when it takes its first breath, it will drain the life force of whoever performed the Blood Covenant. The vampire who created it will die. The words hit her like a physical blow. Die? But Minjun doesn't know. Or if he does, he thinks he can control it somehow. But the ancient texts are clear. The blood covenant is a sacrifice. The vampire gives their immortality to create life, and when that life is born, the exchange is complete. The vampire dies so the child can live. Minji's mind reeled. If this was true, then Minjun's desperation made even more sense. He'd performed a ritual that would kill him, perhaps without fully understanding the consequences. Was he truly willing to die for power? Or had he discovered some way to cheat death, some loophole in the ancient magic? When the child is born, Junho continued, one of three things will happen. If Minjun is truly the father, he dies and the child lives. If someone else performed the ritual, that vampire dies instead. Or, he paused, his expression grave. Or the ritual was performed incorrectly, incompletely, in which case both the child and the vampire could die. The magic could collapse, taking both lives. No. Minji's voice was fierce, her hand pressed protectively over her stomach. No, that won't happen. I won't let it. You may not have a choice. The blood covenant is ancient magic, older than our kingdoms, older than vampire and human memory. It follows its own rules, its own logic. Junho's crimson eyes held hers. I'm telling you this not to frighten you, but to prepare you. When the child is born, everything changes. And we need to be ready. Before Minji could respond, a scream tore through the palace, high, terrified, cut suddenly short. Junho was at the door in an instant, power flaring around him like dark fire. Stay here, he commanded, then vanished into the corridor. But Minji couldn't stay. That scream had come from the western wing, where her family was housed. She ran, ignoring the guards who tried to stop her, her pregnant body awkward, but driven by maternal terror that went beyond reason. Through corridors and downstairs, following the sound of shouting and the smell of blood, until she burst into the western wing's common room and froze. Her mother lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath her head. Her sister cowered in the corner, eyes wide with shock. And standing over them, his hands covered in crimson, was Minjun. Minji breathed, horror and rage warring in her chest. Minjun looked up, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw genuine emotion on his face. Not triumph or cunning, but desperation and fear. I didn't mean to, he said, his voice cracking. I just wanted to talk to them, to explain, to make them understand that the child needs me. You killed my mother. The words tore from Minji's throat. No, she's not, she's just unconscious. I only pushed her, but even as Minjun spoke, Minji's mother wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. Junho arrived with guards, taking in the scene in an instant. His power exploded outward, pinning Minjun against the wall with invisible force. What have you done? The king's voice was death itself. I didn't mean to kill her. Minjun struggled against the magical bonds. I just needed leverage, needed something to make Minji cooperate before time runs out. Time runs out. Junho's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? And then Minjun laughed, a broken, desperate sound. You don't know. After all your research, you still don't know. The child has to be born under the next blood moon. That's 6 weeks from now. If it's not born by then, the magic becomes unstable. The child dies, I die, and Minji probably dies too. 6 weeks, brother. That's all we have. The revelation hung in the air like a blade. 6 weeks, Junho repeated slowly. And you thought threatening her family would somehow help? I thought they'd convince her to accept my claim. To stop fighting, to let me protect the child properly. Minjun's desperation was palpable now. Don't you understand? I gave up my immortality for this. I performed the blood covenant knowing it would kill me, because the alternative is worse. If that child is born without a proper bond, without acceptance, the magic could destroy everything, the palace, the city, maybe the entire eastern bloodlands. Minji barely heard him. She knelt beside her mother, pressing fingers to her throat, searching desperately for a pulse. They're faint there, but there. She's alive. Get a healer. Now. Guards rushed to obey. As healers arrived and began working on her mother, Minji turned her full attention to Minjun, and in that moment, she hated him with an intensity that frightened her. "You will never touch my family again," she said, her voice cold as death itself. "You will never touch me. And you will never, ever touch my child. I don't care what happens in 6 weeks. I don't care if the magic destroys us all. I will die before I let you claim this baby." "Foolish girl," Minjun spat. "You don't understand what you're carrying. The Dawnbringer isn't just a child. It's a weapon, a key, a force that could reshape our entire world. In the right hands, it could unite the kingdoms, bring peace, create a new age. In the wrong hands..." He laughed again, that broken sound. "In the wrong hands, it could end everything. And you think you're qualified to decide its fate? You, a powerless human." "She's more qualified than you," Junho said coldly. He gestured to the guards. "Take him to the dungeons." He assaulted a member of a royal ward's family, violated palace sanctuary, and admitted to performing forbidden magic without consent. By vampire law, he faces execution. As the guards dragged Minjun away, still protesting, still claiming he was trying to save them all, Minji remained kneeling beside her mother. The healers had stabilized her, but she remained unconscious, her breathing shallow. "Will she live?" Minji whispered. "We don't know yet," the head healer admitted. "The injury is severe. The next few hours will tell." Junho knelt beside Minji, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have anticipated Minjun would try something desperate." "It's not your fault." Minji's voice was hollow. "It's mine. I brought this into your palace. My child, my curse." "It's not a curse." Junho's grip tightened slightly. "And what Minjun said about 6 weeks, about the blood moon, we need to understand what that means. If he's telling the truth, if there's a deadline we didn't know about, then we have even less time than we thought." Minji forced herself to stand, forced herself to think past the fear and grief. "Your mother. Can she get here in 6 weeks?" "Barely. If the weather holds, if the roads remain clear." Junho stood as well. "But even if she does, even if we get Minjun to confess, what then?" He performed the ritual. "When the child is born, he dies. And if what he said about proper bonding is true, if the child needs to be accepted by its magical father." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The implications were clear. They were running out of time, out of options, and out of hope. In 6 weeks, the blood moon would rise. The child would be born. And someone would die. The only question was who. Chapter 6: Revelations and Sacrifice. 5 weeks passed in a blur of tension and preparation. Minji's mother recovered slowly, but the attack had left her weak. Her sister refused to leave their mother's side, and Minji visited them daily, trying to be strong even as fear gnawed at her insides. The child had grown enormously, her belly swollen far beyond what any normal pregnancy would be at this stage. The kicks were powerful enough to bruise from the inside, and at night, she could feel the child's consciousness pressing against her own curious, powerful waiting. Minjun remained in the dungeons, but his words haunted everyone. 6 weeks until the blood moon. 6 weeks until the child must be born. 6 weeks until someone died. Junho's mother arrived 3 days before the deadline, her carriage appearing through a late-season snowstorm like an omen. Former Queen Haisun was smaller than Minji expected, her silver hair piled high, her crimson eyes sharp despite her advanced age. She swept into the palace like a force of nature, demanding to see her sons immediately. The confrontation in the throne room was explosive. "You performed the blood covenant?" Haisun's voice could have shattered glass. "Without consent? Without understanding the full implications?" Minjun, brought up from the dungeons in chains, looked small before his mother's fury. "I did what I had to do. For the family, for our bloodline. For your pride." Haisun cut him off. "You were always jealous of your brother, always convinced you deserved more. And now you've doomed yourself and endangered an innocent woman and child for what? Power? Recognition? Mother, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're a fool." She turned to Junho. "And you. You knew about this for weeks and didn't tell me immediately. I wanted to handle it myself, Junho said evenly. By letting it spiral until a woman nearly died and your brother faces execution? Hai-sun's expression softened slightly. My sons. Both brilliant, both powerful, both absolute idiots when it comes to asking for help. She moved to stand before the Council of Elders, who'd been summoned to hear her testimony. I have spoken with Minjun privately. He has confessed everything, the ritual, the memory dust, the manipulation. He performed the blood covenant on Minji without her knowledge or consent. By vampire law, his claim is void. Relief crashed over Minji like a wave. It was over. The council would rule against Minjun. She'd be free. But then Hai-sun continued and relief turned to ice. However, the ritual cannot be undone. Minjun's life force is bound to the child. When it's born, which must happen in 3 days under the blood moon, he will die. There is no way around this. The blood covenant requires sacrifice, and the sacrifice will be paid. No, Junho said flatly. There must be another way. There isn't. Hai-sun's voice was gentle but firm. I've studied every text, consulted every elder vampire who remembers the old magic. The covenant is absolute. Life for life. Immortality for mortality. When the Dawnbringer draws its first breath, Minjun draws his last. Minjun's face had gone pale. I knew the risk. I accept it. Do you? His mother studied him. Do you truly accept that you threw away eternity for a child you'll never know, for power you'll never wield? For the first time, Minjun looked uncertain. Afraid. Yes. I accept it. Elder Sang-hoon raised his hand. The council has heard enough. Minjun of the Eastern Bloodlands, you are found guilty of performing forbidden magic without consent, of assault, and of endangering the royal line. However, given that your death sentence will be carried out by the magic itself in 3 days, we see no need for execution. You will remain imprisoned until the child is born. Your claim to the child and mother is void. They are free. The gavel came down with terrible finality. As guards led Minjun back to the dungeons, Minji felt no triumph. Only a hollow sadness. Minjun had been desperate, ambitious, cruel, but he was also about to die for his crimes. That seemed punishment enough. Junho escorted her back to her chambers, his silence heavy. When they were alone, he finally spoke. 3 days, he said quietly. And then you're free. You and the child can leave the palace, return to your village, live whatever life you choose. Free, Minji repeated. The word felt strange on her tongue. For weeks, all she'd wanted was freedom from this nightmare. But now, facing the reality of it, she felt empty. What will you do? Rule. Continue as I have for 50 years. Alone, as is my fate. Junho moved to the window, his back to her. Minjun will die, the child will be born, and life will go on. Unless the magic is unstable, Minji reminded him. Unless Minjun was right and the child needs proper bonding or everything collapses. We'll face that when the time comes. Minji studied his back, broad shoulders tense with unspoken emotion, hands clasped behind him in that formal way he had. This king who'd risked his throne to protect her, who'd fought his own brother, who'd given her a chance when no one else would. Junho, she said softly, using his name without title for the first time. What will happen to you when this is over? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. He still didn't turn. For 50 years, I've been frozen. Unable to move forward, unable to let go of the past. And then you appeared, impossible, inconvenient, carrying a child that shouldn't exist, and suddenly, I was forced to feel again. To care again. To fight for something beyond mere survival. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Finally, he did turn, and his crimson eyes held depths of emotion she'd never seen. All I know is that in 3 days you'll leave. And I'll go back to being alone. And somehow, that prospect bothers me more than it should. Before Minji could respond, before she could even process what he was saying, a sharp pain tore through her abdomen. She gasped, doubling over, one hand clutching her stomach. Minji. Junho was at her side instantly. The baby, she managed through gritted teeth. Something's wrong. It's too early, the blood moon isn't for 3 more days. Another wave of pain, stronger this time. And with it came a voice, not words, but pure feeling, pure urgency, pure fear. Help. Danger. Wrong. The child was talking to her. Warning her. Get the healers, Junho commanded, but Minji grabbed his arm. No. Not the healers. This isn't labor. Something else is wrong. She focused on the child's consciousness, trying to understand what it was trying to tell her. Someone's doing something. Some kind of magic. Attacking the child. Junho's power flared, his senses expanding throughout the palace. The dungeons. Minjun's cell. There's magic there, dark magic, ritual magic. They ran. Through corridors and downstairs, guards scrambling to keep up. When they burst into the dungeon level, they found Minjun's cell door open, the guards unconscious and inside. Minjun stood in the center of a ritual circle drawn in his own blood, chanting in that ancient language. His body was glowing with dark fire, his crimson eyes wild. Stop. Junho commanded, but Minjun only chanted faster. I figured it out, the prince gasped between words. The loophole. If I complete the ritual myself, if I transfer the bond to someone else before the child is born, I can survive. I just need a willing vampire to take my place, to accept the sacrifice. There is no one, Junho said coldly. No vampire would willingly die for your mistake. Wrong. Minjun's smile was triumphant and terrible. Mother already agreed. Horror crashed over them. Junho spun toward the cell entrance just as former Queen Hai-sun stepped inside, her expression serene. Mother, no. Hush, my son. She moved to stand beside Minjun in the circle. I've lived 7 centuries. I've seen kingdoms rise and fall, watched generations live and die. I'm tired, Junho. And if my death can save my younger son, and can give him a chance to make amends, then it's a death worth having. You can't. Minji cried. The prophecy, the Dawnbringer, what if the child needs the bond with whoever performed the ritual? What if this destroys everything? Then it destroys everything, Hai-sun said simply. But I won't stand by and watch my son die when I can prevent it. Even if he's a fool. Even if he deserves his fate. He's still my child. The ritual reached its crescendo. Dark fire exploded outward, filling the cell, and Minji felt the bond within her shift, the connection that tied the child to Minjun suddenly severing, reforming, attaching to someone new. To Hai-sun. The former queen gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Oh, I see now. The child, it's magnificent. And then the magic stabilized. The dark fire faded. Minjun collapsed, freed from the death sentence. Hai-sun remained standing, but Minji could see the change in her, the slow drain of life force beginning, the countdown to death that would end when the child took its first breath. Mother, Junho whispered, devastated. What have you done? What mothers do? She smiled at him, sad and loving. I protected my child. Both my children. Now you must protect the mother and baby. When the blood moon rises in 3 days, the Dawnbringer will be born. And I will die. Promise me you'll care for them, Junho. Promise me you won't let my sacrifice be for nothing. I promise, he said hoarsely. Hai-sun nodded, satisfied. Then she walked past them, out of the cell, her bearings still regal despite the death sentence now hanging over her. I'm going to spend my last days in the gardens. I always loved the gardens. She left them there, Junho broken, Minji reeling, and Minjun freed, but at terrible cost. Brother, Minjun began, but Junho cut him off with a look of such fury that the prince flinched. Get out of my sight. You're exiled from the eastern bloodlands. Begone by sunrise, or I'll kill you myself, mother's sacrifice be damned. Minjun fled. When they were alone, Junho turned to Minji. Are you all right? Is the child? We're fine. The bond was transferred cleanly. She paused. Your mother saved him. After everything he did, she saved him. That's what love does, Junho said bitterly. It makes us sacrifice everything for people who don't deserve it. 3 days later, as the blood moon rose red and full over the Crimson Palace, Minji went into labor. Chapter 7. Dawnbringer. The birthing chamber had been prepared with every comfort, soft linens, skilled healers, Minji's family at her side. But as the contractions intensified and the blood moon reached its zenith, none of those comforts mattered. The pain was beyond anything she'd imagined. Each contraction felt like being torn apart from the inside, as if the child was made of pure energy fighting to break free. The healers looked worried, whispering among themselves about the baby's size, its power, the magical energy pouring off Minji in visible waves. "It's too much," the head healer said quietly to Junho, who'd refused to leave Minji's side. "Her body can't handle this. She's human. The birth of a being this powerful will kill her." "No." Junho's voice was absolute. "I've lost too many people. Not her. Not now. Your Majesty, there's nothing we can." "Then I'll do it myself." Junho moved to Minji's side, placing his hands on her swollen belly. "Minji, listen to me. I'm going to use my power to help you through this. It's going to feel strange, but trust me." Through the pain, Minji managed to nod. Junho's power flowed into her cool, ancient, strong. It wrapped around her like armor, supporting her body, lending her supernatural strength. The pain didn't disappear, but suddenly it was bearable. Suddenly she felt like she could do this. Hours passed. The blood moon hung overhead like a watchful eye. And in the gardens below, former Queen Haisun sat among the night-blooming flowers, feeling her life force drain away with each passing moment, at peace with her choice. Finally, as dawn approached and the blood moon began to set, Minji gave one final, desperate push. The child slipped free. For a moment, there was absolute silence. No cry, no movement. The baby lay still in the healer's arms, and Minji's heart stopped. "No. Please no. Not after everything." Then the child took a breath. And the world exploded with light. Pure, golden light poured from the baby, not the crimson of vampire power, not the pale glow of human magic, but something else entirely. Dawn light. Sunlight. Life itself is given form. Every vampire in the chamber recoiled, crying out in pain. Sunlight was death to their kind. But this light didn't burn. It was illuminated. It healed. It filled every corner of the chamber with warmth and hope. The baby opened its eyes, not crimson like vampire eyes, not brown like human eyes, but gold. Pure, liquid gold. And it cried, a sound that was music, that was birdsong, that was every beautiful thing Minji had ever heard. "A girl," the healer breathed, awestruck. "The Dawnbringer is a girl." Minji held out her arms, and the healer placed the baby in them. The moment her daughter touched her skin, the golden light softened, became gentle, became perfect. This was her child. Her impossible, perfect, powerful child. "What will you name her?" Junho asked softly. He stood at the edge of the light, able to bear it, but clearly uncomfortable. "Sora," Minji said immediately. The name meant sky in the old language. "She'll be named Sora. She'll be free like the sky. No one will own her. No one will use her. She'll choose her own destiny." "Sora," Junho repeated, and the name sounded right. A guard burst into the chamber. "Your Majesty." "The former queen." "I know," Junho said quietly. "The child is born. The sacrifice is complete." They found Haisun in the gardens, sitting beneath a cherry tree that had bloomed out of season. She was smiling, her eyes closed, her hands folded peacefully in her lap. She looked younger somehow, as if death had erased the weight of 7 centuries. Junho knelt beside his mother, taking her cold hand in his. "Thank you," he whispered. "For everything. For Minjun. For giving me another chance to protect someone. For your sacrifice." If she heard him, she gave no sign. She was gone, her life force completely transferred to the child, her 7 centuries condensed into the spark that had given Sora her first breath. The funeral was held at sunset, with all the honor due a former queen. Vampires from across the eastern bloodlands came to pay respects. And in Minji's chambers, baby Sora slept peacefully, her golden light dimmed to a gentle glow. The next day, Elder Sanghoon called an emergency council session. "The Dawnbringer has been born," he announced. The prophecy is fulfilled. Now we must decide what becomes of this child. She has the power to unite or destroy kingdoms. She must be protected, trained, and guided properly. She will be, Minji said firmly. She stood before the council holding Sora, and for the first time since entering the palace, she felt no fear. I'm her mother. I'll protect her, raise her, and teach her to use her power wisely. A human raising the most powerful being in vampire history? One of the elders scoffed. Absurd. The child must be given to the royal family, raised as a princess, educated in vampire ways. No. Junho's voice cut through the chamber. The child stays with her mother. I declare them both under permanent royal protection. Minji will raise Sora as she sees fit, with full support and resources of the crown. Anyone who challenges this will answer me. The council erupted in protest, but Junho didn't budge. Finally, Elder Sanghoon raised his hand in silence. The king has spoken. The matter is closed. However, his ancient eyes were fixed on Minji. We must address security. This child will be hunted. Every kingdom, every vampire lord with ambition, every human who fears vampire power, they will all want to control or eliminate the Dawnbringer. How will you protect her? I'll protect them both, Junho said. Minji and Sora will live in the palace, in the royal wing, with full guard protection. And I will personally ensure their safety. For how long? Elder Sanghoon challenged. A year? 10 years? The rest of your immortal life? Yes, Junho said simply. For the rest of my immortal life. As long as I draw breath, they will be safe. The weight of that promise hung in the air. It was unprecedented, a vampire king dedicating his existence to protecting a human and her half-vampire child. But looking at Junho's expression, at the determination in his crimson eyes, no one doubted his sincerity. That night, alone in her chambers with Sora sleeping peacefully in her arms, Minji finally let herself cry. Tears of relief, of grief for Hai-sun, of exhaustion, and overwhelming love for her daughter. She'd survived. They'd both survived. A knock sounded at the door. Junho entered, carrying a small wooden box. I thought you should have this, he said, holding it out. It belonged to my mother. Minji opened the box to find a beautiful jade pendant on a silver chain. I can't accept. You can. You must. Junho's expression was soft. My mother would have wanted Sora to have it. It's been passed down through the royal family for generations. Consider it an inheritance. A protection. Why are you doing this? Minji asked quietly. Really? You've given up so much, your privacy, your freedom, your independence. You've bound yourself to protecting us forever. Why? Junho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Because 50 years ago, I failed to save the woman I loved and the child we created. Because that failure hollowed me out, made me into something cold and alone. And then you appeared, this fierce, brave woman fighting for her child against impossible odds, and you reminded me what it felt like to care. What it felt like to have something worth protecting. He moved closer, his crimson eyes meeting hers. I can't bring back Seoyun or my son. I can't undo the past. But I can make sure you and Sora have a future. I can make sure what happened to them never happens to you. And maybe, in protecting you, I can finally forgive myself. That's not love, Minji said gently. That's guilt. I know. His smile was sad. But perhaps, with time, it could become something more. If you'd be willing to give me that time. Minji looked down at Sora, at her daughter's perfect face, at the gentle golden glow that pulsed with each breath. This was her miracle. Her impossible child. And this vampire king with his tragic past and unexpected kindness, he'd fought for them, protected them, given them a future. Time, she repeated. Yes. I think we can give you time. Junho's expression brightened. Just a fraction, just enough. Then that's all I ask. He left her then, closing the door softly behind him. And Minji sat in her chambers, holding her daughter, feeling the weight of the jade pendant in her hand. The prophecy had been fulfilled. Dawnbringer was born. And against all odds, they'd survived. Outside, the blood moon set, and the sun began to rise. Sora stirred in her arms, and her golden eyes opened, reflecting the dawn light. "We're going to be all right," Minji whispered to her daughter. "You, me, and that broken king who thinks he doesn't deserve happiness. We're going to be a family. A strange, impossible, magical family. And we're going to be all right." Sora cooed softly as if she understood, as if she approved. And in that moment, as dawn broke over the Crimson Palace, Minji believed it. They would be all right. After months of fear and uncertainty, after betrayal and sacrifice, after everything, they would be all right. The dawn had come. 1 year later. The gardens of the Crimson Palace had never been more beautiful. Under Minji's gentle influence and Sora's mysterious power, flowers bloomed year-round now, their colors more vibrant than ever. Even the vampires, who typically avoided gardens during daylight hours, found themselves drawn to the space Minji and Sora had made their own. Sora toddled through the flowers on unsteady legs, her golden eyes wide with wonder, her small hands reaching for butterflies that seemed drawn to her light. She was growing faster than human children, a side effect of her hybrid nature, but Minji didn't mind. Every moment with her daughter was precious. "Mama, look." Sora pointed at a particularly large butterfly, and when she giggled, flowers spontaneously bloomed around her feet. "I see it, sweetheart," Minji called from the bench where she sat with her mother and sister. Her family had made the palace their home, no longer servants, but honored guests under royal protection. "She's extraordinary," Minji's mother said softly. "Every day, something new. Every day, something terrifying," Minji corrected with a smile. "Yesterday, she accidentally turned one of the guard's swords into a flowering vine. He was not pleased. But Junho was," her sister teased. Minji felt warmth rise in her cheeks. He found it amusing. Over the past year, something had shifted between her and the Vampire King. It started with daily visits to check on Sora's development. Then conversations that stretched into hours, discussions about books and philosophy and dreams. Then shared meals, walks through the gardens, moments of comfortable silence. He'd never pushed, never demanded. He simply existed beside her. Patient, kind, gradually becoming less the cold king and more the man he'd once been. "He's been good to us," Minji's mother said. "To all of us. That's rare in a ruler." "It's rare for anyone," Minji replied. As if summoned by their conversation, Junho appeared at the garden entrance. He'd abandoned his formal robes for simple black, his long hair pulled back, looking almost human in the afternoon light. Sora spotted him immediately and squealed with delight. "June!" She ran toward him on unsteady legs, and he caught her with easy grace, swinging her into his arms. "Hello, little Dawn." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, unbothered by the golden glow she emitted. Over the past year, he'd built up a tolerance to her light. It no longer pained him. "What have you been doing?" "Making flowers." Sora pointed proudly at the garden. "See? I see. Very impressive." He carried her over to where Minji sat, his crimson eyes warm. "Minji, walk with me." She stood, taking Sora from his arms. The three of them strolled through the gardens, an odd family, but a family nonetheless. "I received word from the Western Bloodlands," Junho said quietly. "They've requested an audience. They want to meet Sora." "No." Minji's response was immediate. "I agree. I've refused them." He glanced at her. "But Minji, we need to discuss this eventually. Sora is growing, her power is increasing. Soon, we won't be able to hide her from the world. And when that happens, we'll face it together." Minji stopped walking, turning to face him fully. "That's what you promised. That's what we agreed on." "I know. And I intend to keep that promise." Junho's hand moved to cup her cheek, a gesture that had become familiar over the months, tender and careful. "But I want you to know that when the time comes, when the world demands to see the Dawnbringer, you won't face it alone. I'll be beside you. Always." "Always is a long time," Minji whispered. "Not long enough." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Not nearly long enough." Sora, held between them, giggled and reached up to pat both their faces. Mama. June. Family. The word hung in the air, simple, profound, perfect. Yes, Junho said, his voice rough with emotion. Family. Family, Minji echoed. And as the afternoon sun filtered through the flowers, as Sora's golden light mingled with the natural illumination, as three impossible people stood together in a garden that shouldn't exist, Minji realized something. She was happy. After everything, the fear, the pain, the betrayal, the sacrifice, she'd found happiness. With her impossible daughter, her protective vampire king, in a palace that had become home. The prophecy had said the Dawnbringer would unite or destroy kingdoms. But perhaps it had missed the simplest truth, that sometimes the greatest power wasn't in destruction or domination, but in bringing together broken pieces and making them whole. In the distance, bells chimed. Evening was approaching, and with it, the time when vampires truly came alive. But for now, in this moment, Minji held her daughter and stood beside her king and knew with absolute certainty. They were going to be more than all right. They were going to be extraordinary. What an incredible journey! The barren maid, the impossible pregnancy, the scheming brother, and a vampire king who found redemption through protecting them. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more epic fantasy romance tales. And tell me in the comments, would you trust Junho? Would you stay in the palace or run? Your thoughts fuel our next story. Until then, may your own dawn bring light to every shadow. See you in the next tale.